Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I hope you're all doing well, whatever time of day it is and wherever you are. Today we've got an interesting AI story for you. So again, just bringing you all the latest news in AI that we're uncovering and sharing our views on that. But before we dive into the story, guys, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and say hello in the comments.
Do it.
It doesn't cost you anything, literally just to hit that like. You might not, even like us, but it doesn't matter. All right, just hit the like, okay? So I really appreciate the support. And let's dive straight into it, Will.
Absolutely. And one other thing quickly is we upload this across multiple channels. So you might be viewing this on my channel. And if you are, this is an Ava Technologies video. So go over to the Ava Technologies YouTube channel and subscribe over there. It will be greatly appreciated. One day in the future, you may be watching this on Ben's channel too. And if you are, go over and check out the Ava Technologies YouTube. And if you're watching it on Ava Technologies, come and say hello to our personal channels as well. We both do different types of content. And yeah, just sharing the love, isn't it, Ben? Sharing the love.
That's what it's all about, and trying to bring you guys value and sharing what's happening in the AI space. We're working in it, and it's a good way for us to keep on top of what is happening in the space by literally bringing you the latest news. I mean, literally, we'll share the story which we're about to share with you 30 seconds ago, and I've just had we just had a quick chat and we're diving straight into it. So we haven't had a huge time to digest. It's pretty much, we're giving it to you live, and we're giving you our sort of real feedback, and without any sort of fancy polish or anything. So it's rough, raw, and ready, and we're ready to go. Let's do it, Will. Come on.
Without further ado, here is the article for today. It is Gemini Robotics. So this is from Google DeepMind, which is Google's in-house AI lab. Gemini Robotics 1.5 brings AI agents into the physical world. It was published on the 25th of September, so we're a little bit behind, but our news sources have just caught up with it. And this is fascinating on so many levels. Just before we jumped on, I was talking about the different levels in which I personally find this fascinating. One of which, and the most obvious, is obviously robots are cool. We're in an era of physical agents, as DeepMind puts it. And this is really interesting. So they're bringing the large language and agentic capabilities that they've built with their Gemini large language models and obviously other Gemini models under that. And they're trying to bring it in with a robot, which is obviously the next natural step for a lot of these things. Which brings on to the second point, which I find interesting about this, is how AI has been developed over the last 5 years, for example. If you watch any of the sci-fi movies or read any scientific literature, often, from 20 years ago, more, it is said that robots tends to be how AI is portrayed. However, in reality, that is not what's happened, which is what I find very interesting. We are in an era where AI has literally been on the device, whether that be a cloud provider or locally. You're talking to it via text, and robots really haven't come into the public limelight very, very often. Again, when we're talking about the job market, we're talking about white collar jobs, where people are doing physical computer work. That is where AI is going to be taking over first, not necessarily these physical jobs. Those are the ones that are mostly safe, the trades, etc. So I find it very interesting on that fact as well. But it's also really cool to see these amazing robotics coming into action now. And yeah, it's just massive food for thought for me.
Absolutely, Will. It was interesting. I'm going through a phase at the moment with my son, who's at school and thinking about doing further education and what to do and what to study. And the number one conversation I'm having with him is to sort of open his eyes up to say, look, the world that you're aware of now and the world of work that we're familiar with is fundamentally going to change hugely over the next 5 years, let alone 20 years. So, a lot of the jobs, the entry-level white-collar jobs that may have existed when you went to university back in my day, and you just got maybe a bit of a generic degree and you just go and apply for some, low-level sort of white-collar job and try and sort of go up the slippery slope. Or the slippery pole, or whatever slippery thing you wanted to call it. Those entry-level jobs are starting to disappear already, and that's happening now. Businesses are asking the question, do we need to hire somebody for 40k, 50k a year as a junior position, or actually can AI do this role? So I think it's an interesting conversation I'm having with my son, and the output of that is it looks like he's interested in engineering, which is fantastic. And again, interestingly, I was chatting to a retired engineer, and his take was similar to mine, really, that the white collar, entry level, middle person, if you're pushing paper, or even you're a intermediary, you're in the middle of a transaction, those sort of jobs, in lawyers I'm talking about here, financial services I'm talking about estate agency, I'm talking about anything where there's a middle person involved with the transaction is going to be absolutely decimated. So the question then is, okay, so what industry is going to be safe for a young person entering the workforce? Well, engineering, physical, tools, the trades, things like that. But in the back of my mind, I've always said, and I believe that actually that's fine now, and maybe for the next 5 years, but maybe in 20 years, then we're going to be seeing some, problems, over the horizon, and those jobs won't be as safe as we possibly think they are now. So that's my take, and I think it's quite interesting, because I think there is again, in my generation, it was almost like, you do A-level, you go to school, then you do A-levels, and you go to university, and there's this treadmill that this is the path you do, and then at the end of it, doesn't really matter what degree you did, as long as you get a degree, you get an okay job, and you'll be set for life, type of thing. That sort of changed, actually, I think, for a lot of people, because there was such a huge push, and there were so many people going through getting degrees, that suddenly the value of a degree was almost meaningless, and people were coming out of university going, can't really get a job. Oh, I can get a job at Tesco's, stacking shelves. Oh, that will do for now, and then maybe I'll go traveling and figure it out. And then actually they come back and they just kicking the can down the road, and they haven't really progressed or done anything with their lives, because actually, they didn't have a clear path in terms of, I guess, what they possibly wanted to do. But I think that was a quite familiar path with a lot of people, and people have obviously had to change their careers and move with the times and pivot and discover where their place is. But I think now young people aren't as keen necessarily or wise to go into university, or thinking that education is the holy grail that it once was. And even more so now, trades possibly are becoming actually, if you're thinking ahead, do I want to be risking, my job or a future job not existing? Because that's the reality we're in, and not everyone's aware of that, but they should be. So I think the smart kids are thinking, do I want to go into law? Do I want to go into, whatever it is? Do I just want to do a generic degree? Maybe things like engineering might be a really smart move. Maybe things like trades are a really smart move. So it's happening. Robotics is happening. And I think it was a natural, the LLMs were probably the first wave, because it was almost like a
starting point,
path of least resistance. It was easier 100%. In many respects. Robotics, you're having to deal with,
robotics
sites,
is very,
and,
very hard,
malleability, and all the rest of it, and so it's interesting. But there will be one day when robots will be able to be dexterous and cut hair like a hairdresser, or carry poles and put up scaffolding, no doubt. And I think anyone who doesn't think that they're living in cloud cuckoo land. But it's just, the question is when. So I think, personally, I think we're a little way off, maybe 20 years before it impacts. We're probably 5 to 10 years off. There's impacts now in the white collar workforce, but I think again we're still super early. But it's really fascinating. I think it's something that everyone needs to be aware of and think about. And I've got another point, but I won't keep talking, because I just want to hear what your view is as well, Will.
No, I think I echo a very similar sentiment to you. I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, with your son. We've also spoken about that just in our own time as well, just because we work together and you converse. And I think I echo a very similar sentiment in that the landscape of education, I think, has silently changed, at least in my view of it. I think it's not being talked about enough, but I think the paradigm has shifted. And I think for young people coming up through, whilst and I'm talking specifically about the UK here because I know the education system here, but I can't speak necessarily for other countries. But for here, you get education up until 18-ish for free. And obviously that's a great thing, free education. And I think when you're picking your options and you're going through this system, as you said back when you went through this system, it was different, very different. And I think that paradigm that you went through is very similar to the paradigm that I went through as well. It didn't change for a long time, and it's the paradigm that's being also continued to be pushed now. However, as I said, it's silently changed. Now I think when young people come up through, my recommendation to them, or what I would do if I could do this again, was to possibly pick something, I don't even necessarily, my opinion is not, I don't even necessarily have to love it, but some kind of physical trade, because that is the job. Those are the jobs that are going to take the longest to go. So I'm talking, electricians, carpentry, something physical as a fallback option whilst it's free. Get the training, because we don't know where the job market is going to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years at all. I don't know where it's going to be in a year at this point. So the physical trades are very safe. And then what I really think you should focus on is being an autodidact, self-learning, looking at trends and teaching and following your passions yourself without institutions. A lot of people are going to start to feel stuck or purposeless because they've spent all their life training and doing things within a bubble. And all of a sudden, AI is coming around and upsetting industries to a huge degree. So a lot of people are going to feel lost, and the only way you can overcome that is by finding some sort of self-purpose and self-regulation to go out and learn and follow passions. So that's really what always been a big skill set for me, is follow what you're interested in, teach yourself. Don't think that you need to be within an education system necessarily or the traditional education system here in the UK to be able to do those roles. It's very fascinating. In terms of robotics, we're a long way off yet, but as you said, it's still coming. Only shifting my position slightly is right now going out and studying something like engineering or physical engineering or one of the trades. I think that's only important now. I don't know where we'll be in 20 years. In 20 years, I'm sure this will still be around to some degree, just like the white collar jobs will be. It will just be a different story. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, absolutely. And on a to sort of give a positive spin, I think we've always as humans we've always experienced big change, whether it was the Industrial Revolution or whatever. There's always been periods of history that's undergone huge change, and as humans we always figure it out. We find new ways to be productive, we find new opportunities, new work, and I think that will continue. So I think it's just the reality is the reality, but as humans we'll figure it out, and we'll find better ways and smarter ways, and actually, again, just to be positive, we are creating a better world. I think the world we're living in is absolutely phenomenal. We've got this unbelievable technology that's emerging. We've got crypto, which I've talked about previously on my show, which I don't really talk about too much now, but I'm still a massive advocate for it. And it's an absolutely technological revolution that we're experiencing, and it's phenomenal. So it's an amazing time to be alive. It's just when change happens, it can be disruptive. And I think as a human, as a person, you've just got to be mindful of it, aware of it, look to the future, but also focus on the soft skills, because what makes a human is the way we can interact, the way we can communicate, the way we can get on with people, be friendly, be polite, be a good person. Those skills are probably going to become more and more important the more technologically advanced we become. So that interpersonal skill, that ability to hold a conversation. So I think those skills are going to be absolutely vital in the future.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's
Absolutely.
interesting. It is interesting because
I keep-
knowledge is no longer a thing that you need to keep in your mind.
No, it's no longer. Exactly. It's no longer a commodity necessarily. I keep saying it because I truly believe it. I think this is much more like the Renaissance period, which I guess if you don't know was a big period in European history between the 14th and 17th centuries, and it started in Italy. And I think the AI era is far more like this. The Renaissance period is renowned for the rebirth of classical arts, literature, philosophy. It was a huge period of advancement in technology, medicine, self-discovery for people. It's when you saw those beautiful Greek paintings, all this art. It was a beautiful period, not like the Industrial Revolution, which was a lot more gritty, depressing, if you like. This, I think, has the AI revolution has much more characteristics around the Renaissance, which was ultimately an amazing period for mankind in European history. And I think that's what they're following the same things. You can choose to look at it in lots of different ways, and I think that's probably the best way to look at it, and then make decisions based on that.
Definitely. I've got something else to add, but I'm not going to hold it for another show because
Sure.
this conversation can obviously carry on for a long time.
Robots
and it's a conversation. This type of topic is something, how the world's going to change is something we're going to keep circling back to as we hear these stories and reflect on them. So I'll hold it for another day. To
bring it back slightly more towards the tech as well, because obviously we're talking, quite on a society level, really. The robots are really cool. It's what's one thing that's really interesting to see is labs starting to pick it back up again, because this wasn't always the case. Obviously, OpenAI did a period of robotics stuff as well, but they canned it in the end because of it was very expensive to do, not much result for that spending, and obviously other advancements like LLMs took off far greater. As you said, I think that is the path of least resistance, and it's one piece of the cornerstone. It's really interesting to see how robotics is now changing. Before, they didn't really talk about the internals, but it's interesting to see these large language models and these things that we interact with on our computer being baked directly into robots' brains.
100%,
if you like now. So it's really cool to see frontier labs bring it back up, like Google DeepMind. I hope that more advancement comes.
To be honest, I think people again might sort of dismiss it or think it's way into the future, but it's not, because there are huge demographic problems facing the Western world in terms of aging populations and not enough of a workforce, which is going to create huge issues economically, and there's going to be a lot of investment put into pushing robots forward, pushing robotics. You will have robots looking after the elderly, making sure they've got their medicine, helping them with their mental health, all these types of things. So all the technologies like we're building with Ava Mind on the mental health side of the app, again, that could be plugged in directly into a robot in terms of the way it interacts and is trained. So it's really interesting. But there's no doubt that we've got a massive demographic problem facing the West, and the robots will be the solution to it. It's an interesting, crazy world, and again, that's another conversation probably for another day.
We could talk. I've come to realize this actually. I've come to realize this could be a really deep conversation for a long old time if we don't call it a day.
Mate, there's so much. There's so much, isn't there? There is so much.
That's what's amazing,
so many, elements to it.
Yeah, that's what's amazing though, and I love that. You have to have these dialogues, because before you know it, these futures will be here, and you'll be like, where did that come from? That's the nature of this technology. It's just bang, suddenly we have robots. And we haven't really asked some of these questions and answered any of these questions. So no, although you could talk forever, it's important to have these dialogues. Absolutely. Well, listen, let's wrap it up, guys. Listen, if you're still here, I really appreciate it. Let us know what you think. Put it in the comments. Would love to hear what your thoughts are, where you see things going. If there's AI things that are happening that you'd like us to talk about, let us know. We want to engage with you and build a show with you, and your support means the world to us. So really appreciate it. Hit that like, subscribe, and do all those amazing things. Catch you guys soon. Take care. Catch you guys next one. Bye.